Well, a major new challenge for the Obama administration oversees Egypt. It is certainly on the brink after the overthrow of a freely elected president and the return of what looks like military rule. And now there are growing fears the country is creeping closer and closer to all-out civil war. Some blaming the chaos to foreign policy. And arguably a blunder by President Obama. Let's bring in our political insiders. John LeBoutillier is a former Republican congressman for New York, Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor, and a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter, fresh from his European vacation. He looks, youthful
wiped
and
out,
refreshed. Doug Schoen. He, too, is a Fox News contributor, former pollster for Bill Clinton, and did not go to Europe.
No, I did not.
But you had a birthday.
I did.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start with, the president is 0 for 2. He backed the first president, and then he backed the second president, and he's 0 for 2.
Well, that's right, and that's the problem. Everybody in the Middle East is either mad at the president or sees him as impotent. He facilitated the removal of President Mubarak, acquiesced to the election of the Muslim Brotherhood, then appeared to acquiesce to their removal, President Morsi's removal. Bottom line, we've angered everyone. We've shown we have a lack of influence in Egypt. Syria remains a tinderbox. And in the Middle East, bottom line, the Arabs and the Israelis, we can't even get them talking.
Well, Pat, we give them $1.6 billion a year.
Yeah, well, we do. And
what are we getting for our money?
Well, now at least the military talks to us. We have, look, this is just the president goes to Africa on his $100 million trip while the Rome is burning everywhere. Just the world's going up in flames. They are paying the price. This administration has been, its outreach to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and around the world, which I consider one degree of separation from Al Qaeda, basically, as well as domestically, has backfired massively. And you rarely have I ever seen people calling for the army to overthrow the elected government. But remember, this democratic government was already suspending the Constitution. Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood, was moving to power, and they were threatening Israel again. So, this has been just a no-brainer. And meanwhile, our Secretary of State, I'm sure John will.
Well, he was on his yacht in Nantucket. I'm not going to make it to Nantucket this year. I actually have to work for a living. But the Secretary of State, there he is. There he's on his multi-gazillion-dollar yacht.
And to be out there last Wednesday and Thursday while Egypt is going up in flames is disgraceful. It's not right. Should have been on the phone working this problem. Deserves all the criticism he's getting. And
because America has vital economic and strategic interests in Egypt, does it not?
Let me just echo what both these guys said a little bit more strongly. When President Obama won in 2008 and he went over to Cairo in 2009 as the president,
right,
he gave a then big speech and invited the Muslim Brotherhood to attend that speech. He brought them out of the shadows by inviting them. He conferred American legitimacy
and there it is, right
on
there.
Bad guys. They're bad guys. They're the radicals in the Islamist movement. And when the United States puts a good housekeeping stamp of approval on them, that's a bad thing.
I want to ask you about the, let's put the Razzie poll up on the screen here. The daily presidential tracking poll, and take a look at this. The president continues to take a nosedive. His disapproval rating is now upticked to 53%. He's underwater here, obviously. 46% approved.
Well, there are three things going on. First, the impotence in the Middle East that I and John and Pat have been talking about. There is the uncertainty in the economy. We've had some good economic news, the job report, but bottom line, the markets have been very, very volatile, and particularly of great importance is the suspension of the employer mandate on Obamacare.
Yeah.
President is failing.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a moment. Sure. But Nicaragua, Bolivia, and Venezuela are mocking the president over Ed Snowden.
Excuse me, everyone is mocking the president. The Russians are mocking the president. The Chinese are mocking the president. All of the Middle East, what you were talking about, John, the Secretary of State is involved. And I'm not saying the Israeli Palestinian peace talks not important. But he's in the when he was in the region, you have Syria blowing up in civil war, Egypt falling apart, and Iran about to get the bomb. You would think they had their priorities.
I got to
don't
get
look
to
strong.
Obamacare because this was really stunning.
Huge.
Here is the president's signature achievement, and this week he says, just kidding. You don't really have to, employers over 50 employees have to comply with a mandate.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is a horrible, horrible setback for Obamacare, isn't it, John?
It is a big setback, along with two other setbacks. The announcement over the last few months that the exchanges that they're trying to set up in each state to cover these people,
Total mess.
They're a mess. And then the IRS problem. The discrediting of the IRS as a government agency applies in this
But don't worry,
case.
John, they're hiring, 15,000 new
Great.
employees to enforce
And
Obamacare?
Doug, under the same woman who ran the charitable thing, she's going to be running the division of Obamacare.
None of which you would know from the opposition party.
Do you think Obamacare is actually never going to happen?
I think there's a good chance it will be either frozen or repealed in a new Congress. Bottom line, it is fatally flawed. It is not going to work the way the president wants
Should
it to.
Republicans simply delay it, delay it, delay
Yes.
it?
Yeah, well,
that's
yes,
the
you
thing.
delay and kill it. By delaying it, you kill it. Let me
Stop
just
trying
say,
to repeal it, just delay it.
It's just ridiculous, the behavior of the Republican leadership. Barbara Tuchman's phrase about wooden-headedness applies to them in this case.
But here's the thing.
But name names. Which one would you
Speaker
say?
Boehner?
Speaker Boehner, number one,
Boehner
and
is Mr.
Cantor,
Woodenhead.
number two. They're the ones
How about
drive.
Mitch McConnell?
Mitch McConnell said, but he doesn't
So
control
you're
the
naming
House.
the two Republican leaders
Who
as
run the
Woodenheads,
House
right?
that is the center, supposedly, of an opposition party. They are nowhere to be found. The IRS thing has disappeared. Look, the Obamacare, taking the IRS out, delay.
The delay thing makes the most sense because Democrats running for re-election next year,
terrified.
2014, would probably say, I wouldn't mind delaying this for another 4 years.
We're going to have a business mandate disappear, but not the individual mandate.
Greg, look at it this way. We're allegedly going to hire 20,000 new border guards when immigration across the border has slowed to a trickle, and we're hiring 15,000 new IRS agents to enforce Obamacare. Where is the focus on the economy and jobs?
Just throw up the first graphic, will you please, on Obamacare. Almost 60% of Americans want to get rid of it. I mean, they just think it's awful. And look at this, 58% repeal all or some, and 60 some odd percent just think it's just going to make health care, look at that,
Okay,
66,
but
it's
here's
just going to
the
make it
thing. In the
worse.
Senate, which is run by the Democrats, you're not going to get a total repeal passed in this Senate. But you could get a delay based on the fact they've delayed one part and the IRS is in mayhem.
Working.
It's not working.
Look, the
and
cost-
Doug's thing is
$1.8 trillion.
The
That's
costs are going through the roof on insurance premiums. The whole thing is turning into a nightmare. From the very beginning, we said, and I said from the beginning, that this, with the night it passed, this was a crime against democracy.
If
The
you like
country
your
would
health
never
care, you get
accept
to
it.
keep it, remember
well,
that?
that's one
We'll
of the
see
great
about
And now
statements.
premiums are going to skyrocket.
It's like the greatest canard ever.
Yes.
We're going to pause, take a quick break. Our guys are going to stick around. Republicans looking for a magical potion to solve all of their political problems. Could the immigration bill be the panacea?
4% to 27% Hispanic vote, not because conservatism is bad, it's because the rhetoric around immigration has tainted the Republican Party brand with the Hispanic community for no good reason.
Immigration reform is the latest political football. Let's bring them back in. John LeBoutillier, Pat Caddell, and Doug Schoen. Congressman LeBoutillier, Republicans, are they on the right side or the wrong side of this?
Well, he's on the wrong side. Republicans are very split, by the way, obviously, in the House
and Senate.
Big time. But that thinking, which is prevalent among Senate Republicans up to a point, is that if they pass this so-called comprehensive immigration bill, which has basically amnesty in it, that will solve the problem. And I think we've learned, studying this, the three of us, that the real problem Republicans have is a long-term problem of tone about the way they talk about this issue, talk about Hispanics, Hispanic Americans
Also
and
some of
immigrants.
They're accused of being tone deaf.
Right. Also substance. Bottom line, what Hispanics here are most concerned about is being empowered, having a chance to get good jobs, start businesses, and let their families participate in the American dream. They're not obsessed about immigration, and this bill is not going to change their fortunes.
This is one of the great political misjudgments. It's confirming the idea, oh, this is a silver bullet, that's why we lost. They didn't lose that. They lost Asian Americans worse than they lost Hispanics, and the Asian Americans
Talking about Republicans.
Talking about Republicans, Romney. They are clearly much more.
Isn't this bill better than the existing?
Let me just say this. You can make a case that there's a moral imperative to solve immigration. You can argue that there's a national policy imperative. But to get up and say we have to do it because we have to save our party, when it will not do that because that's not the essence of the thing, is a disaster. And it's watching the Republicans continue to present that they really didn't lose the election. We lost because of Hispanics. They lost it because they can't empathize with anybody.
You know, the other thing is taking the big picture, too. We've talked about it. Doug, every week, has been talking about the aimless presidency.
Right.
What we really have is we have a vacuum in the White House. There isn't much happening in this administration.
No,
but
he's playing golf and basketball.
Well, but I mean, on policy, on moving things, nothing has happened. But on the Republican side, they've disappeared too. There is a vacuum.
And that is the president's strategy, which is to go hard left and demonize the Republicans. And the Republicans, as John and Pat say, are cooperating.
Gotta go. Guys, political insiders, you guys are the best. You can catch more of the insiders every Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern at live.foxnews.com. They'll be back here next Sunday. You can also follow them on Twitter at FN Insiders. Back in a flash.